On May 18, 1783, the first United Empire Loyalists arrive in what is now St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. But why did these Loyalists go to Canada? And what personal connection does Mr. Lewis have to these Loyalists? Also, which of America's founding fathers had a famous son who was a Loyalist? Many of these refugees had had their property seized during the American Revolution because of their loyalty to Britain. In response, Britain's King George III granted land to many of the United Empire Loyalists in Canada. One of my great-great-great-great-grandfathers was one of these Loyalists. His sawmill in New Milford, Connecticut had been burned to the ground by patriots and his property seized by the state. In 1779, he and one of his brothers joined the King's American Dragoons, a Loyalist militia in New York City where they served under Count Rumford. Like many families at the time, my great-great-great-great-grandfather's was divided, as his elder brother fought in America's Continental Army during the Revolution. The Treaty of Paris officially ended the war in 1783. Despite a stipulation in the treaty where the U.S. promised to protect the property rights of Loyalists, my great-great-great-great-grandfather's property was auctioned by Connecticut, and he received no compensation. He petitioned the king and was granted land in Canada. He, his wife, and their sons were among those Loyalists who landed in St. John in 1783. I had the pleasure of visiting New Brunswick in 2019 and enjoyed seeing the places where my ancestors took refuge. I even stood on the property my great-great-great-great-grandfather once owned there. That property and the small community where it's located still bear his name. I also found the grave of one of his sons, who would be my great-great-great-great-uncle, in the old First Community Cemetery in St. George, New Brunswick. Probably the most well-known family divided by the American Revolution was the Franklins. Prominent American founding father Benjamin Franklin's son William Franklin was serving as the royal governor of New Jersey when the American Revolutionary War began. William was Benjamin Franklin's only son who had survived to adulthood, as his other son Francis had died at age 4. In fact, it was William who had helped his father with his famous experiments with electricity years earlier. Despite his father's best efforts, William refused to come over to the Patriots' side and was even imprisoned for a time. William Franklin became one of the Loyalist leaders in New York City during the war. There, he helped organize and support various Loyalist military units, including the King's American Dragoons, the unit in which my great-great-great-great-grandfather served. After the defeat at Yorktown, William left New York City and settled in England in 1782. He and his father never spoke to each other again. William Franklin died at age 83 in London in 1813, 23 years after his famous father's death in Philadelphia. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1863, Grant begins the Siege of Vicksburg, the last Confederate stronghold on the Mississippi River. In 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court declares segregation constitutional in the Plessy v. Ferguson decision. In 1920, Karol Józef Wojtyła is born near Krakow, Poland, becoming Pope John Paul II in 1978. In 1974, India successfully tests its first atomic bomb, becoming the world's 6th nuclear power. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupts in what is the most destructive volcanic event in U.S. history. In 2001, the film Shrek is released in US theaters, becoming a surprise blockbuster. In 2021, Johns Hopkins reports that the US has surpassed 1 million deaths from COVID-19. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. How many of his 6 wives did England's King Henry VIII execute? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Liked learning about the United Empire Loyalists? Then you'll love this one about the Spaniard who helped America win independence. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.